Alright, so today we're going to be Elden Ring only using Bleed. I know what you're thinking, Bleed? Really? That's the easiest status effect in the game. So, we're going to be spicing things up to make it a little bit more interesting. Rule number 1, for every main boss I kill, that being any boss required to progress, I have to switch not only weapons, but weapon types. For example, if I use Reduvia for Margit, then I can no longer use daggers throughout the whole rest of the run. Rule number 2, I am locking Smithing Stone level ups and Somber Smithing Stone level ups behind Remembrance bosses. So I will be at 0 until I kill Godric, which then when I do kill Godric, I'll be gaining +1 and +2.5 respectively on each stone, so +1 Somber, +2.5 regular stone, and so on. I will have this chart I will show on screen, and I'll keep track of the smithing stone progress on the top right of the screen for the whole video. Rule number 3, I must be in light load the whole run, which basically means I'm just going to be naked the whole game, besides using the Okina mask to give me +5 dexterity later in the run. But before we get into the actual run, I'm hitting you all with the most overused YouTuber trope. So if you look at my sub count and my views in the last couple of videos, something ain't adding up. So you guys better subscribe or else. Alright, now that we got the mild threats out of the way, let's get into the run. For real, if you guys do enjoy these videos, make sure to subscribe. It does help me a lot. But yeah, now we choose the Wretch class because it is the most diverse, being level 1 and giving us 10 of each stat, which will help us for our many builds throughout this whole run. We create our character and we head over to the Grafted Scion. He scares me, so I jump off the cliff, unaliving myself. Then we make it to the open world, head over to Melina to grab Torrent, and we immediately hightail our way over to the Wondrous Physic, go pick it up along with the Sacred Tear at the church. Then we head over to Weeping Peninsula and grab a couple more Sacred Tears. After that, we head over to Caelid, make our way over to the Nice Calvary, and we jump over the bridge and causing him to chase after us, doing the same jump but not quite making it, and letting gravity do all the work and granting us 42,000 runes. We then use the levels for the stats I'll show on screen. Then we head back to the Gatefront Ruins and pick up the flail out of this chest here. After that, we head to the outer Murkwater Cave. Then we get invaded by Bloody Finger Nereus, and we wait for Yuri to come here to save us, and basically the whole time we're just trying to keep aggro on us because Yuri cannot 1v1 him, unfortunately, but we also don't have the required stats to use the flail. An oversight on my part because we are only doing like 20 damage a hit, so I'm just mainly trying to keep aggro away so Yuri can go crazy on him until eventually Yuri does the job and killing Nereus, granting us Reduvia. Now that we have Reduvia, we head straight over to Margit, and for the most part we're just going to be spamming Reduvia Bloodblade because it is just so strong. The fact that it has like this sick range and good tracking, so like even when he's like going for his jump attacks, we can still track him with it, and it still causes bleed, which is just what we need. But yeah, I think for the most part throughout this video, more or less, we're not going to be commentating over the fights directly, and I'm just going to be talking to you guys. It's been a while since I've just sat down and we just sort of chatted. First off, we're going to talk about upcoming games, mostly Souls-likes that are coming up because the PlayStation Showcase just happened this past week, so it got me thinking of what other upcoming games that I am excited about, and personally, top of my list is Hollow Knight Silksong. Of course, Hollow Knight is my favorite game of all time, Elden Ring being a close second. I really hope that Silksong comes out this year. That'll make me very happy, and I'll definitely be uploading that. That'll be really fun. I just can't wait for it to come out and play as Hornet. Need Silksong. The fact that it got delayed broke my heart, but I know Team Cherry is doing the right thing, so I trust in Team Cherry. Next, Crowsworn. Crowsworn, if you haven't heard of it, it is a Kickstarter game that was backed. I think it like got 1.2 million or something like that dollars into it, which is crazy. And it looks like a Hollow Knight clone, but I'm sure it'll find its own identity because it has guns and whatnot. But it has the same sort of art style, 2D Souls-like aesthetic, and it reminds me more of like, I guess if you say Hollow Knight is like Dark Souls, then Crowsworn would be more like Bloodborne in my opinion. And I'm really excited for that game as well. I think it's coming out later this year, so when that comes out I'll also be playing it. Just so many good games coming out, like Lords of the Fallen. Lords of the Fallen just got another trailer recently, and I'm very excited about that one as well, because I believe it's a reboot to the series. I heard the first one was pretty bad, but it does look pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, I like the trailer, that got me excited, and not many game trailers nowadays get me excited because most of them end up like disappointing on release, so we'll see what happens here. Oh, and we have killed Margit. We will continue this conversation next boss fight, granting us the Talisman Pouch. And I'll have on screen after every main boss we kill the weapon type that is crossed out and the long list of weapons on screen. After killing Margit, we make our way over to Grail, the sleeping dragon, Mommy Grail if you will, and we're just going to be using the spinning chain to just proc bleed very quickly and just build up and spam it until she eventually does die, granting us more runes. These are the stats that we put it into. After that, we head over to the Weeping Peninsula, and we want to upgrade flails because if I'm going to be using a flail, I don't want to be using just a normal flail. So we turn it to nighttime and we fight another Knight's Cavalry. This time, it's because we want his weapon, the Knight Rider's flail. So this fight took me quite a bit as well because the Knight's Cavalry is just not an easy fight, but we try to just stay behind him and go to his not flail side and try to get him to switch weapons. Most of our attacks, not going to lie, goes to the horse because the horse is so big and he's not easy to hit. That doesn't really matter because if we can get him on the ground, then we can get a riposte off. So we're just going to try to stay on his not flail side, and whenever he switches hands, we go to the other side and back and forth until we can eventually kill the Knight's Cavalry, granting us the Knight Rider's flail. Now that we have that, we're going to head over to Stormvale Castle, grab the marred leather shield on the way up the stairs, because believe it or not, this is a weapon we are going to be using later. I think we use every single type of shield in this video. Then we run to the back of the storage room here and pick up the hook claws, grab the rusted key, and head through the Stormvale Castle, make our way over to Godric. And for Godric, we are going to be using the Knight Rider's flail that we had just acquired, and I really like the spinning chain Ash of War attack that it has, but it is very hard to like pull off. Like, you need the boss to be standing still for it to be super effective. So for the most part, we're only going to be utilizing it after a poise break, or if he goes for the big jump attack. That leaves him vulnerable long enough for us to just sit there and start on him until we can proc a bleed, because it just hits so fast, allowing us to build up bleed so quickly. But yeah, back to the upcoming games. First off, let me know what type of games you guys are looking forward to this year, and I'm hoping most of these games come out this year. Lords of the Fallen is confirmed to come out this year, and I think that'll be fun. I'm definitely going to play that on the channel if it has a good release. And another game that just got announced is Phantom Blade Zero, and to me it looks like a mix of Bloodborne and Sekiro, which I'm a big fan of. I've never played Sekiro. That's something I want to play on the channel, and I've been mentioning that quite a bit early on, but it's something I think I'm going to get to soon. But that game looks like a mix of those two, which looks great. Not 100% sure if this is a Souls-like game. It just gives me those vibes. Another game coming later this year is Armored Core, and I know it was not really on my map personally until everyone started hyping it up, because I've never really been a big fan of the whole mech thing, but it's from Software. They haven't really made a bad game in my opinion, so I'm definitely going to give it a chance. I feel like everyone's on that same sort of boat. If they haven't played a Armored Core game in the past, this will definitely be a lot of people's first, just because Elden Ring was so massively successful. And obviously, speaking of upcoming games, we cannot leave out the Elden Ring DLC. Now, I think they did a investor meeting, like showing their projections and whatnot, and I want to say Elden Ring DLC isn't like scheduled till 2024. I know they said they're not delaying it, but they want to release it later because they want to make the game live as long as possible to generate the most revenue, which makes sense from a business standpoint. But from me being greedy and just wanting DLC, I freaking hate that decision. And if I can find that exact screenshot that I saw, I'm gonna put it on screen so you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, because we really need Elden Ring DLC. I need it so bad. I need Elden Ring, more Elden Ring, because I remember halfway through playing Elden Ring for the first time, I said to my friend, you know what, I need Elden Ring too. He looked at me and he was like, what the fuck do you mean? The game isn't even, we're not even like close to beating the game. What do you mean you need Elden Ring 2? I just knew that I was in love with that game, and I knew that it was going to end and make me sad. We have defeated Godric. Right, here's our first Somber Smithing Stone, or Smithing Stone 2.5. After Godric, we head over to the Rhea Lucaria Crystal Tunnel, because at the end of this tunnel, there is a Crystallion that grants us the Smithing Stone Bell Bearing, which we're going to need because we're going to be doing a lot of upgrading throughout this run, because we're going to be switching weapons a lot. The Crystallion, a walk in the park, very easy. Just sort of quick step towards him and just start slashing him up. Like we stagger him with every single hit we do with these hook claws. So he was very easy to take out. The only thing that was stopping us was our stamina running out from just comboing him to death. We get him into a nice combo to kill off the Crystallion, ending his pathetic little life. Now that is done, we're gonna go pick up the Academy Gate key and head into the Academy. That is on to our next challenge, the Red Wolf of Radagon. And for this fight, we're gonna be using the hook claws. And yet, speaking of upcoming games, I actually want to talk about more variety on the channel, because as you can see, I've only really been playing Elden Ring, and that's mainly because when I did post another game, it was Resident Evil 4 Remake when it came out. That video flopped in comparison to what my regular videos were at the time. Like, I was averaging like 1,000 to 1,200 views on every video at that time, and when I posted that video, it kind of flopped and did like 147 views. I think it like got to like 150 something total. So I think I unlisted that video just because like it doesn't look good like from a sponsored point of view, and that's how I was looking at it. Like, unlisted the video, but it kind of scared me of doing variety. So during the summer, because I believe I'll have a lot more time, I will be able to experiment more, and I'd like to branch out, try different games. Like I said earlier, I want to beat Sekiro, post that on the channel. I want to do some more Elden Ring modded content and some more Elden Ring runs. So I think like in a perfect world, if everything goes to plan, I will have one Elden Ring video and one other video a week, and if I'm not feeling any other game, then it'll just be 2 Elden Ring videos a week. But I definitely want to expand during the summer and experiment with a bunch of different stuff. And comment down below what type of game games you would like to see on the channel. And the Red Wolf of Radagon is dead. We head over to Caelid and go over to this merchant over here to purchase the spiked Castus. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Some people say it's Caestus, some people say it's Castus. I'm going to say Castus, and that is a fist weapon, which will be the next weapon we will be using. Just got rammed by this ram over here. What are you doing, bruv? Leave me alone. All right, and now that we have that, we're actually going to be using that against the next boss here, Rennala. For this fight, we just basically go around punching the little children, and then we practice our YouTuber boxing methods on Rennala here as she was laying there helpless. We 3-cycle her into phase 2. Phase 1's boring, ZZZZ, so we're just going to skip over to phase 2. And yeah, for phase 2, most of the time, we're just going for jump hits because it does stagger her out of her magic attacks, which is best case scenario because then she's not spamming us with all of that cringe stuff. But like I was saying earlier, I would like to expand variety on the channel. Mainly what I'm thinking is a Sekiro playthrough, which I want to do, or I guess I could upload it, like beat the whole game, upload it in one video. I do want to give Resident Evil 4 another chance. Now that like the viewer base has grown, maybe people will enjoy it more. We'll see. There's a series that I started my channel on, which was called Is Blank Still Good? And it's sort of like me going back in like a retrospective sort of thing, playing like I was called Hollow Knight 5 years later. It's a bad video, don't watch it. Like it was my first video on the channel, but it was basically me playing through the game, seeing if Hollow Knight was still good 5 years later, which obviously it is. I want to do another video like that, but for Cuphead, because Cuphead has had the DLC out and I haven't played it at all, so that'd be fun to do. And I did purchase some other Souls-like games on Steam that I haven't really given a fair chance that I would like to play eventually. Those games being Astragus, Curse of the Stars, I heard that was pretty good. And then I also purchased The Last Hero of Nostalgia. I've heard that game was pretty entertaining. It is for more comedy purposes, and it has like a cool art style for being a Souls-like. So I'd like to give that a chance eventually on the channel. There's a bunch of other games I'd like to experiment with. So I think I'll be doing that over the next couple of months because I'll have a lot more free time during the summer, like I mentioned. And we have killed Rennala. And that is another Remmemberance boss, giving us our next upgrade of +2 or +5, respectively. I'll have it on screen always. And that gets Fist off of the list. Now we're heading over to Limgrave, heading over to the Stormfoot Catacombs, and grinding out the little imps because we want their hatchet that they do drop because it does give bleed buildup. The weapon we're going to be using to grind them is the Marge shield that we picked up earlier. And it took a while to get this drop, but we eventually do get the drop. I think it took me like 15-20 minutes of just bashing my shield against their small little imp brains. But now that we have that, we're actually going to head over to the Fort Height and go pick up the first medallion piece. Then we're going to head over to Caelid and pick up the second medallion piece. Before we head over to the Altus Plateau, we're actually going to give Loretta a visit because Loretta is standing in the way of the Ronnie quest line, and the Ronnie quest line leads to Estelle, and Estelle is a pretty easy Remembrance boss in the grand scheme of things, so it'll be nice to take him on later to give us another smithing stone upgrade. So we're going to be using a glitch here, and we're going to go stand in this exact corner, and if you save and quit and come back, Loretta will be unresponsive. Her AI won't even know you exist, and I'm going to be beating her to death with the shield, getting the shield out of the way. But don't worry, I still have to figure out a way to utilize 2 other shields throughout this playthrough, so I'm not going to be able to cheese all of them. And yeah, we just beat on Rennala, her unresponsive body. She takes quite a bit, but we do kill her because the shield does like what, 40 damage a hit? If I'm lucky, 50. It's pretty pathetic damage, so I'm so glad that this glitch exists, allowing me to kill 2 birds with 1 stone and get rid of Loretta and this shield. Now that she was dead, we're actually going to do the Millicent questline because Millicent gives us Prosthesis Wearer's Heirloom, which gives us +5 dexterity, which I think almost all bleed weapons use dexterity as like their main scaling point. We are going to be utilizing anything that can give us more dexterity, and because of that, we actually need to kill Commander O'Neill, which some would consider a main boss. So I'm not going to be using a weapon on him. Instead, I'm going to be using the rock geysers to kill him, as I've done before in my previous video, but we're just going to be luring him into these geysers here, allowing him to get killed by the environment and not me hitting him, so I don't have to actually lose a weapon over silly old Commander O'Neill. Yeah, then we go talk to Millicent and get our talisman. After that, then we finally head up to the Altus Plateau, and we make our way up this side route here to this cave that I've never even seen before, the Perfumer's Grotto. It's so weird, like how much, like I've put nearly 500 hours into this game, and I've never seen this place before in my life. But yeah, I've never been in here before because it was hiding behind a big flower, and why we are here is because we have a double boss fight in here, and one of the bosses in here drops a weapon that we can utilize, which is the Omen Killer's Cleaver. So for the most part, we're just going to be baiting out the Omen Killer's attacks. He'll be jumping at us, and we'll just be trying to hit in between, and the flower is really easy to deal with because the poison was the only like thing I had to worry about with the flower. Their little magic star attack, I just have to like, they easily telegraph it, so it's really easy to dodge. So we take out the Omen Killer, and then we just beat up on this poor defenseless Miranda the Blighted Bloom flower and get ourselves the cleaver. After that, we head underground and we take on the Ancestor Spirit, and we use the hatchet here that we got from the imps to do this because it's quite a weak weapon for a weak boss. The Ancestor Ancestor Spirit is kind of a joke. Like, it's very cool thematically, but in terms of an actual boss fight, it's kind of like a pushover, unfortunately. I do like this boss though. So we just sort of stick by his legs and beat him up here. And because this is a very basic fight and he's just gonna like run away a lot, I'm just gonna get him through it here, and we do kill the Ancestor Spirit just by chopping away at his legs and finishing him off. And we just do that for the free runes that he does give us. I know it is not a lot, but we'll take it. Only makes sense to, if we're gonna fight the other Ancestral Spirit, that we do fight that one first. It just feels right. It feels wrong skipping one of them. And then we make our way back to Limgrave and we head over to this little guy here. We give him a smack, and he's actually a rune bear in disguise. And the reason why we are fighting this rune bear is because it gives us a larval tier, because we need to respec to use the Omen Killer's Cleaver. After getting tossed around by the rune bear, we eventually do kill it, getting us that larval tier. And then we head back to Renala and respec. I'm not going to be showing me upgrading all of our weapons because we upgrade a lot. This would be like a 2-hour video if I'm just showing me constantly going back after every boss fight and upgrading weapons over and over again. But now that we have our cleaver, we're going to make our way over to Radahn. And Wild Strikes on this acts similarly to the Flails art Ash of War, where it does really high DPS and good chance for bleed. You just have to find the right area to use it on, because it leaves you quite vulnerable because you're just standing there swinging wildly, hence the name Wild Strikes. Anyways, for the most part, we will just be using that on Radahn, spamming Wild Strikes on him to deal as much damage as possible, trying to get behind him whenever we can and do that because the chance of bleed is high, and that's what we're here for, to abuse this bleed. I think this was one of my favorite weapons to use during the playthrough. This and Reduvia I did like using a lot. I used a lot of weapons. There was a lot of them I wasn't the biggest fan of. I really like Whole Blade later on that we use, the Scythe that we end up using, and Rivers of Blood I used for the first time that I've never used before, and I can see why it's broken. Like, it's just so good. But yeah, this like showed me a lot of weapons that I would have never even considered using, or like I would have just ignored, and it forced me to use them, which was kind of fire, I'm not gonna lie, because I'm very much a one-trick pony for the most part when it comes to these sort of games. When I find a weapon that I like the moveset of, and I just stick with it, and there's not much to it, I'll just pick up a weapon and be like, ah yes, I enjoy this, I learned its moveset, I will no longer switch, I will use this for the rest of the game. And that's just sort of what I did through my main playthrough. Now we get him into phase 2, he comes down at us, and we try to take the opportunity whenever he goes for his like gravity attacks to get in between his legs and hit him with some more Wild Strikes, because it just does so much damage. It's just so free to just spam. And we sneak behind him, beat up on his little horse Leonard here. We get a nice bleed proc there. He is now one shot. He lunges at us, we dodge, and we go for a hit. It doesn't kill him, and then we hit him again and finish off Radahn. Let's go! Granting us another remembrance, giving us another level up. I'm not going to keep track of all the level ups, so it'll be in top right of the screen every time that it switches over. Editing Curtis will take care of that. Now that Radahn was dead, we're actually going to end the festival. I never knew that this was possible, because I've never really needed to end the festival. After it was done, you can actually go up here, talk to this guy, he will end the festival. And the reason why we're doing this is because there's a weapon in the Redmane Castle that I need to get access to, and you need to end the festival to open up all the doors. So once we do that, we head up here and grab the Flamebird, and this is a great sword that gives bleed. After that, we head over to the Wraithblood Ruins, and we take on Magnus, because Magnus has a weapon that we want, the Great Stars that he is wielding. It does apply bleed, so we kind of want to take it from him and use it for ourselves. So we just try to use the Stamp Upward Cut ability whenever we can, because I love using moves that send NPCs flying. It's always so funny to just watch the little bodies ragdoll around. So Magnus was kind of difficult because he likes to throw stuff at me, sort of like the Beast Clergyman himself. Just stay on him constantly to try to cancel his attacks, go for the uppercut whenever we see fit, and finish off Magnus here to give us the weapon that we want. Now that he is dead, we head over to Leaping Peninsula, head over to the Tombsword Ruins, and what we're doing here right now is we're just collecting a bunch of weapons at once, so then we don't have to kill boss, collect weapon, kill boss, collect weapon. We're just going to get a bunch of the weapon collecting out of the way, so we can just fight boss, 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 back to back to back. So what we're grabbing out of this ruins here is the Winged Scythe. I've never really used a scythe before, but I did like this one in particular. The move that you use, like the Ash of War that sends you like flying around, it feels so good. Like, it's so fun. Most Ash of Wars are so fun to use, and I like heavily neglected them in my like main playthroughs. After that, we head back to the Wraithblood Ruins because I actually missed the actual ruins part, and there's a Sanguine Noble down here, and after we kill him, there is a weapon behind the chest. We just use the uppercuts to our advantage and stick on him, be like super aggressive, and we deal nice bleed damage to him. He's kind of a pushover. We just like deal way too much damage with this uppercut. We get a nice poise break here. We get the riposte off, dealing a fat amount of damage. We finish him off, and then we get into the chest behind him, getting the Bloody Helix, which is another weapon that we can use. After that, we head over to the Volcano Manor, and we head upstairs to get invaded because this guy has the infamous pizza cutter, the big old bloodborne weapon here, Giza's wheel. So we're just gonna get invaded by Giza, and he is very strong because the weapon that he has is very very strong. So for the most part, we're going to be staying back and playing very careful, using our uppercuts and going for jump hits and just trying to avoid getting sliced up by his pizza blade here. We eventually do kill him, granting us Giza's wheel, which is a colossal weapon, and it's the only colossal weapon that does bleed. We make our way to Nockeron and we head over to the Mimic Tier fight, which we use the Flameberg against, and I'm considering this a main boss, so this will be the end of my beloved uppercut. And because we are Mimic Tier, also naked, so he's kind of like very weak, so it makes it nice and easy, and we take him out pretty quickly. And there goes the Flameberg. We can no longer use, I believe it's a greatsword. I'll keep track of it on screen. I don't have the list in front of me right now. I had it in my notebook when I was like playing through the run. I had that along with like my whole smithing stone progress, just to make sure everything was perfect. Yeah, the Mimic Tier was kind of easy. After that, we respec to use the Winged Scythe. Then we head over to Fort Gale to grab a talisman. I almost died trying to get this talisman, but we eventually do grab it, and it is the Star Scourge Heirloom, which gives us +5 strength, which will help boost this weapon. And then we make our way underground to fight the Regal Ancestor Spear, and we use the Winged Scythe for this fight because this is another Remembrance boss, and we want to try to snowball smithing stones as quick as possible here. So that's what we do. This fight also does take a while because he loves to heal. He loves to just suck in his little spirit boys. But yeah, the other day I actually went out biking, and I haven't been biking in like 8-9 years now. I think the last time I went, I was in like grade 7, I think going on to grade 8, because so I had to go down like 2 hills to get to my school. So I'd bike there every day, and there was obviously a sidewalk, and then there was the grass. And at the time they were redoing the grass, they're actually putting in fake grass. So most days people will be walking up and down the hill. Makes sense. It is a sidewalk. Everyone walks on it. And I would just turn onto the grass and turn back onto the sidewalk. No problem. But because they had taken out the actual grass and the sidewalk was now like a big chunk to actually like get back onto the sidewalk, I was going downhill and I didn't think of anything of it. I turned onto the grass because people were coming up the hill, and then I went to turn back onto the sidewalk. What I didn't realize was it was like such a big gap, and I was on like a bad angle to just turn onto it because, you know, I'm going straight down a hill. So I was going fast, and when I went to try to turn, I ended up speed wobbling and falling down on the sidewalk and smashing like, I think it was like 6 or 7 of my front teeth, chipping them all, and I had to get them all capped. And that was a traumatic experience. So I never went biking after that. Like after that, I put the bike away and I was like, whoa, like this is dangerous. So I didn't go biking. And then the other day, I bought my brother a bike for his birthday. So I was like, you know, I'll give it a little spin, see how it rides. Pretty good bike, not gonna lie. And you just never forget how to ride a bike. Just like the old saying, you don't forget how to ride a bike. It's very true. Like I hopped right back on it, and it was just like how I remembered it. Feels great. I love bike riding. I don't know if I'll pick it back up, but I am now sore. Like I did that yesterday, and oh, it felt good, but I'm sore. Like it hurt to ride this bike. I think that just says more or less that I'm out of shape. But my legs are sore, and that his seat is so uncomfortable. It hurts. Yeah, I think I want to get back into biking because it's a lot of fun. And if you guys ride bikes, let me know in the comments. Let me know like how you do it. Like I know there's a lot of people that like do BMX stunts. There are people that just like love mountain biking. They love just street biking. They love trails, whatever it is. If you're a fellow biker, let me know. And we have killed the ancestral spirit here, giving us another remembrance, giving us some more smithing stones, more importantly. Now we make our way back to Liurnia, and we're actually going to sneak over here and pick up this small spiked shield, and it is the Spiral Horn Shield, which is a shield that does do bleed damage, so it is a part of the challenge, and more importantly, it has the parry. Now we're going to make our way up to the Draconic Tree Sentinel. As if you didn't know, the Draconic Tree Sentinel can actually be cheesed with the parry mechanic. All you have to do is lure him over here to this like side area. You just sort of stay by these rocks because he won't like 100% come over to the cliff. Then when he goes for this jump attack, you parry him, and when he's down, you just give him a little tap, and he will just fall off and die, killing the Draconic Tree Sentinel and getting rid of the small shield. And boom, that's another shield that we have used to kill a boss in this run. That was pretty free, not gonna lie. I've never really knew about that until I forget whose playthrough it was, but I've been trying to like watch more Elden Ring content to like learn how to better my content, and I saw someone do that, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. Then we make our way into the capital, head down into the sewers, and steal the Erdtree's Favor +1 from Moog. Now we're gonna backtrack a little bit and go into the sealed tunnel to grab the bell bearing number 2. We're gonna need it. We have a lot more upgrades to go. Then we head over to Fort Gale again, but this time we're down here to kill this little lion here because he has Lion's Claw, which is exactly what Magnus used on Great Stars in the first place. So we're gonna go put this Ash of War right back on it because it makes this weapon very strong. So after defeating him, we go head back over into the sewers and we take on Moog. This time we're out for blood, and Moog is one of the few enemies that cannot bleed. So what we're going to be doing here is spamming Lion's Claw whenever we see the chance, go for jump hits, and we're just going to try to like chain poise breaks into ripostes to try to kill Moog, because that is the most effective way to kill him, because he cannot be bled in this state down in the sewers, because it is not really Moog. He cannot be hit by like any status effect. I think like Moog, I think the final boss and Goldfree are like the few enemies that cannot be affected by bleed. So for the most part, bleed is overpowered, but in this fight it is just brute forcing Moog because he is a projection, and we just do this until we eventually do kill Mogwin. And why we were killing Moog here is because if we do want to, this leads us down to the deep root depths, which can lead us to Fortisax, and Fortisax is another remembrance boss, so it gives us that option for later in the run if we do decide to do that. But yeah, we finish off Moog, and then we're gonna head over to Mount Gelmir to pick up another weapon that I forgot to grab earlier, which is the Scavenger's Curve Sword here. After that, so you remember Yuri, who saved us at the beginning of the game to help us get Reduvia? Well, now it's time to repay our debts and help him fight the Raven Mount Assassin over in Luernia, because we need to complete his quest line, because after you start it, you can't get a certain weapon till you follow down this quest line. So we're going to be doing just that and beating up on this Raven Mount Assassin. And I've never done this quest line before. I didn't really know it was a thing. Like, I heard of him like standing by in the swamp beginning of the game, but besides that, didn't really know much about it. So we take out this assassin to help him out, and because we do that, next time we head over to the Second Church of America, he'll actually be here on the ground because he has been betrayed by Eleonora, and what she has is the pull blade, which we want. So we're gonna take her on, and this is why we did the quest, because we do want her weapon here. And she does use dragon like yell attacks, which is actually pretty effective. I've never experimented with much of the dragon stuff besides like the breath attacks. I never used the yells or claw or anything like that, but she was pretty easy to take on because we were using the big wheel of doom. We just beat up on her, finish her off to get us the pull blade. Now that we have that, we're actually gonna head over to Kaled again, and we're gonna be going to like one of the early game grinding spots. Like in the Ascended mod, I use this spot, but we're gonna be using it for a different reason. We actually want the Vulgar Militia Saw. Only a certain amount of these Vulgar Militia drop it, so we're gonna be here for a little bit grinding it out until we eventually do get it. And this is another weapon that does give bleed. And right now we're just stacking up all the weapons. After this, we then head into the Northgale Tunnel to pick up the Cross Naginati. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not exactly sure, but it's behind this octopus here in this cave, and it is a spear that gives bleed, so we're gonna be picking it up. Then we make our way into the Shaded Castle here because we want to take on Briar, who I hate. Elmer of the Briar is one of my least favorite boss fights besides like Moog 2. He messes me up. I'm not good with his sword attacks, but I'm gonna count him as a main boss because he is an achievement boss, so I'll put respect on his name. And for this fight, we're gonna be using the Scavenger's Curve Sword here with the spinning slash Ash of War, which is fun to combo. I really like the Ash of Wars that like give you like combo attacks and not just like a one-off. Yeah, the reason why we're doing this because we actually want his shield. Personally, I just wanted to use all three of the shield types that we had access to in this run, so I thought it'd be funny to use his shield. So that's why we're here fighting him, so we can struggle later. I know, right? What I do for content. This fight was pretty simple. We just try to stay as close as possible to him, because if we back up, then he starts doing his throw sword shenanigans, and I don't want to deal with none of that. No one really does. It sucks. Yeah, the splinting slash here was pretty fun to abuse. Yeah, we've had a lot of growth in the past couple of months. Like the past 2 months have been my best months on YouTube, and I am hoping it just gets better, because I would really like to make YouTube a full-time thing. That would make me like super happy, because it's just super fun, and I love doing it. So it'd be cool to turn this like fun hobby into a full-time thing. And we have killed Elmir of the Briar, granting us the Briar Great Shield. Now that we have that, we're gonna head straight up to Goldfree, and we're just gonna be using the Great Shield on Goldfree. I don't know what made me choose Goldfree, because he can't bleed, and that would have made this shield quite like a lot better, you know? Get the procs, but I cannot, so it's just brute damage on Goldfree. And it's a slow fight. I'm not gonna showcase all of it just because how tedious this was, because I'm doing like 100 damage at most. But I chose Goldfree because his attack pattern is one of the easiest in the game. Personally, like he just does like the same like 3 attacks, and they're not super hard to master. So we just sort of stay by him, and we can only get like 1 hit at a time. And when we do get a poise break, we can go for 2 hits and 3 if we're feeling risky, but most of the time it doesn't pay off and we actually get hit because of it. But we just stay on his backside and just give him a big slam, and the shield does around like 120 to 140 a hit, so it's not impressive damage at all, but we make it work, and we end up killing the Goldfree using only a shield, crossing out I think the Great Shield is what it's called. Now it's time time for Morgott. For Morgott, we are going to be using Giza's wheel here to deal as much damage as possible because it is just so strong and you can just sort of shove it into him and just deal so much damage with the wheel. It's a big heavy weapon which will be nice to poise break Morgott, not Moog, sorry. And whenever we do poise break him, we're actually just going to be using the spinning wheel because it is just much more better to try to get that bleed off than that little damage that we would do on the riposte. As we get a nice bleed and combo there, and then we just go for the spinning wheel, and look how it shreds his HP. We get a bleed there and we're just shredding away. Even with his reduced damage, I was still doing like a good amount of HP. We get right back in there after he does his little blast hit. We go for the jump hit, do a nice damage. Like, this weapon is just so strong, and I've actually never used it before. Like, I don't think I've used any of these weapons that I've used in this playthrough besides like maybe the flail. So this was all very new to me, and I had to learn these weapons as using them, and they were all very fun to pick up and use. Yeah, we slice them up whenever we see the chance. We try to go for the spinning wheel because it's just so strong. Goes for his big jump attack. We get a nice poise break here. We just do another spinning wheel and freaking melt away Morgott, finishing him off, granting us another remembrance and another weapon, because we're actually going to be using the remembrance of the Omen King to give us Morgott's sword later, because his sword actually does deal bleed. So then we head over to the Forbidden Lands. Along the way, we pick up the fire talisman, as we will be using it for the fire giant later. We make our way up to the mountaintop of the giants, head over to the Zamor ruins, go pick up the smithing stone Miner's Bell Bearing 3. Then we make our way over to the church, which has the invasion, to fight Okina. I don't know how to pronounce his name, because 1, he gives us the mask, which will be super useful, and 2, he gives us rivers of blood, arguably the best weapon in the game. And we're just trying to stay back because he is so deadly with rivers here. We're actually using the saw to take him out because it has a good range, and we kill him no problem, granting us the rivers of blood and the mask. That will give us +5 dexterity. I'm not gonna lie, I grinded out the Staff of Thorns, and I tried to make like the Thorns incantations work, like the Briar's Punishment and I forget what the other one's called, but they suck and it just did no damage to nobody. So I stopped with the spells. But before we take on the fire giant, we go underground and we pick up the mimic tier, because I'll be using that later. Now it is time for the fire giant, and someone in the comments showed me how to properly use the iframes on the horse to dodge his throwing attack. Before, I'd always try to like jump over it, but if you just stand still and try to get off, it gives you like a really high amount of iframes, so I can just plop off and not get hit by it. And then I just rush the fire giant, and you know, this fight kind of same old. We just stick by his legs, chopping at his foot until we eventually break it open, and then we just hard target the foot until we get into phase 2. There wasn't anything different about this particular run, just the fact Bending Slash was fun to use, and it did a good amount of poise damage because we actually give him some nice poise breaks here, some bleed procs, just dealing mad amount of damage, making phase 1 go by really quickly. But yeah, I was looking at some Elden Ring mods and I couldn't find anything that specifically was meant for Deathblight to be like good in PvE scenarios, so I don't know how I'm going to pull that off yet. I'm going to put that run on hold because I did mention before, I want to do all the status effects as I have done all of them so far besides Deathblight. Bleed was being one of the last ones, but I think I'll shift towards like holy damage, lightning damage, like those sort of effects, the damage types. I also want to do the convergence mod because some of you guys suggested it and it seems pretty good. Reforge seems good. There's a couple of mods that I'd like to try out. Guard of the Eyes would be fun. A couple mods like that, and I think when I do those, I'm not going to upload it like episodically like I was doing with the Ascended mod. Instead, I'll upload it into like one long like movie type video, because that's what I sort of started with, was those movies. So I'll use those good old reliable like 1 to 2 hour videos, put it out with the whole playthrough intact of me just like, you know, playing the game, commentating naturally over it instead of these voiceover sort of things. I think that'll be a lot of fun to revisit some new things and heat me over until the Elden Ring DLC comes out, because they'll act like their own sort of DLC. But yeah, for the fire giant phase 2, we just sort of stick by his thick thighs and a couple poise breaks to take out his eyes, and that's how we actually finish him off, is we get a nice poise break and stab it into his big ugly pupil and pull out and finish off the fire giant. Before we head to Fair Missoula, we're actually going to head back underground and make our way over to Estelle. Now, previously I went and picked up this bouquet of flowers here to try to use it. This thing is ass, alright? The commenter that suggested this thing, you hate me, alright? We're beefing now. I don't know why you would ever suggest such a horrid item to use as a weapon. This thing does 30 damage maximum, okay? I tried to make it work. I was struggling, alright? I was in a Discord call with my friends. They can vouch, alright? I was not having it with this freaking sad, pathetic little bouquet of flowers. Like, when the bleed went off, it was nice, but I suck, alright? I can't, like, be no-hitting until bleed goes off. So instead of that, we actually grind for another hammer, because for whatever reason, the bouquet of flowers is considered a hammer. So we head over to the volcano cave, which is in Mount Gelmir, and we just grind out this single enemy who has this spiked hammer because we really want it until we eventually do get it. And then after that, we head back down to Estelle, and that's the weapon we're going to be using on Estelle. And once I switched over to this hammer, Estelle was light work. First tried him because I wasn't using the stupid freaking flowers. But yeah, this had Barbaric Roar on it, which gives you a slight buff, so I would constantly just be shouting and then just sticking to his skull face here, smacking him away until I eventually do kill him. Estelle, walk in the park, a free remembrance as long as I'm not using those godforsaken flowers, allowing me to get another level of smithing stones, which I will need desperately for the Gods Can Duo fight, which is coming up next. But before we take on the Gods Can Duo directly, we are going to grab some more talismans, because those might be a little helpful. So first off, we head into the sewers to the Lindell Catacombs. We make it to the boss at the very end, which is Elgar, Priest of Blood. Going to be using the pull blade during this fight, and the pull blade dance is so strong. Like, we just use it twice on him and he dies. Like, it's like, look at the damage it's doing. Like, boom, 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 and it poise breaks the dogs behind him as well. It has a nice AoE, and we just finish him off nice and quick, granting us the Lord of Blood's Exaltation Talisman, because what that does is every time we proc bleed, we actually get a damage buff, which, because we're using bleed only, in retrospect, I probably should have got this a lot earlier, but we have it now. All right, that's all that matters. After that, we make our way over to the Stillwater Cave, make our way to the fight at the end, being a clean rot knight, and we basically just manhandle him how we manhandled Elgar, with our nice little blood dance and the pull blades being so strong. The reason why we do this fight is because we want the talisman at the end, which is the winged sword insignia, which does more damage as long as you're doing successive attacks, and because we're going to be attacking a lot with this weapon, it'll definitely help out. Now it was time for the Gods Can Duo. Now the Gods Can Duo fight was not easy by any means. Because we are naked, we are so vulnerable to any of their attacks, so I try to split them off at the beginning by baiting the skinny one to the right side and sticking to him, going for jump hits, and then whenever I could try to get blood blade dance off. It is very hard to get off when the other one's just looming around the corner, like waiting for you to mess up to use his like overly long strikes. Like, his thrust is range is gross. But yeah, we instantly got anyone into phase 2, and when he's in phase 2, a lot more aggressive, and that's exactly what we want to try to lure him away from his friend here. And once we get one dead, we just sort of like give them our fair 1v1s. It's just getting that first one dead, it takes like so long because you're so stressed out, and it makes it a lot harder. Like, I tried this quite a few times and it was not easy any of the times, because some of their moves just straight up like two-shot me, so I have to be very, very careful with my limited amount of healing that I have. Yeah, we just sort of stay behind him and try to kill and a lot of this is just running away, trying to get opportunities to use the pillars to the best of our advantage to get the kill off. And he does go for this double flame here, which allows me to get some nice combos in killing him. And remember, every time you're fighting the Gods Can Duo, always hit their body as they're dying, because it does damage to the overall HP bar, even though you're not actually fighting anything, which is just free damage. Never want to say no to that free damage. Now, that was just a 1v1. We baited him into his fireball attacks or his thrust attacks, because those are the easiest to dodge and get like punish him for, because whenever he throws his fireball, he's very vulnerable. Whenever he's like slamming his thing down, he's very vulnerable. He goes for a summon here. We actually get a poise break, but because we were mid dance, we couldn't punish it. We couldn't like get it off, unfortunately, but we do get a bleed, which is nice. Then we get him into phase 2, and when he's in roly-poly mode, we can utilize the pillars and our hit range to try to like get damage off. But we have to be very careful, because as you can just see, we just bounced off of him there, which is unfortunate. And now we just try to isolate a 1v1. I don't know what Blood was swinging at there, but he's doing his own thing. But yeah, we eventually get them separated enough to where he goes for a fireball and I can go punish it, killing the big boy. And now it's just another 1v1, and I just keep slamming into the dead body, doing that nice damage off. We both go for jump hits here, and I get the win of that exchange. And sometimes it's like a gamble, because sometimes he'll just connect when you're clearly like under him, but because like he lands on you, you do damage. You have to like really get like past him when you do your trades. He goes for fireball here, allowing me to dance. I have to be very careful, because where I am currently, if he goes for the summon, like he's doing right now, he's actually summoning him right behind me, so I have to get out of dodge as soon as possible. Now, it takes a while. Now it's just like a game of cat and mouse. I'm just running away, trying to look for a good opportunity to get off big damage, because they're both alive again, so it brings us right back to stage 1, right what we didn't want to happen. As you can see, like, he goes for the helicopter there, and big boy was right there to just stab at me, like no care in the world. I have to be very careful here, because I didn't want to choke, so I had to play my pots very well, like make sure I'm healing where they're not throwing fireballs. He goes for jump hit here, putting him up on the pedestal, allowing me to get that damage off and still allowing me to hit that body. Now it's just me versus the big boy. Go for that jump hit, and I'm trying to wait for him to try to summon here. I'm playing very careful, because like I said, I could die. Like any move he goes for could potentially two-shot me, so I have to be very careful. I'm just trying to bait out his summon or fireball, and whenever he goes for that, I can go for those hits. He goes for the fireball, I get a jump hit off, I back up again because I don't really want to risk it. He then goes for the summon, and I go for the Bloodblade dance because I'm not choking this, and we kill the Gods Can Duo. That fight took forever, but it does give us the last smithing stone minor melt bearing that we needed. So that is perfect. Now we're going to finish Millicent's quest. We're going to give her prosthesis, and then we're going to kill her because we want her prosthesis because it does the same thing that our insignia does. It gives us an attack boost when we're doing successive attack, but it also gives you +5 dex. So with between our talismans and our helmet, we're at +15 dex, which is crazy. Then potentially I could go pick up the dex crystal knot for the wondrous physic, and that would give us an extra +10. And before we take on Malekith, we are going to be fighting the Dragon Lord Plasudasax. And the reason why we are fighting him is because he's a remembrance boss, and we desperately need those smithing stones for the Malekith fight. And for this fight, we're using the Bloody Helix we picked up way earlier in the game, and we just want to stick by his sides here because he's quite easy. When you're in this position, you can just stab away at him. Just watch out for the big lightning bolts. You might try to use his big wings to attack you, but as long as you stay nice and close, it shouldn't be too problematic. These lightning bolts were very annoying to deal with though, because he was constantly spamming them, and if I get hit by them, it's like over half my HP was gone. And in a deleted footage, because I forgot that there was anything important, I thought it was just failed attempts of this fight, I actually went and picked up the Godric Great Rune, which I am using during this fight, and I will be using for the most part for the rest of the fights in the game, because it is just the best Great Rune to use unless you're a super high level. Then I would favorite Verdan's Great Rune over it. We get a nice poise break here. We stab into his big ugly eye, doing a fat amount of damage, and I tried to make Dynasty's Finesse like work here, or Dynast's Finesse, whatever it's called, the Ash of War. It sucks. Like, it sucks so much. We get a nice bleed proc there, which is nice, but I tried to make it work in the other attempts, and I don't understand. Like, Impaling Thrust is just better. I don't get why like he's doing the whole backup thing to thrust in, because you have to be like inside of them to make it work. Impaling Thrust is just sometimes better in my opinion. Maybe I'm using it wrong, but the Ash of War of this weapon just sucks. And besides like the Lion's Claw, I wasn't trying to change the Ash of Wars on my weapons, so I just sort of try to make it work. Goes for the big nuke there. We end up getting out, and we start attacking his tail, because the tail is like one of the easiest areas to attack him. He's very vulnerable back here as well, because besides like the big lightning bolt, all you can do is go for like a very telegraphed tail smash or shoot fire breath on the back, and if he does that, you just switch sides of his tail and you're all good. He goes for that slam there, and luckily we are underneath him, and if he's going for this dragon breath attack, as long as you tuck right here, I managed to like find that this spot was the best for not getting damaged by the fire breath attack, only like getting damage if he like lands on you. But as long as you're tucked, you should be fine. Goes for the lightning bolts again, and we're just gonna stab away at his tail. And I actually like learned like during this run, you can just walk out of them. There's no need to play all risky like I was doing. You can just walk away, and while you're doing that, you're actually gaining stamina and not wasting it going for a risky dodge, so you can get more hits in when the lightning bolt actually goes off. But now he goes for his little jump attack here, and now we drink our Wondrous Physic because it does have Opaline Bubble Tier, which will allow us to live one hit, which is exactly what we need, because this attack kills me no matter what. Like, I've tried like so many different strategies. I am not good at dodging it. He just freaking owns me. So what I found most consistent is if I run to the right side with my Bubble Tier, he will only hit me once with the laser. If you try to run like straight on, the laser will hit you 2 or 3 times, killing you like even if you get like a good dodge off. And I didn't even bother with the left side, because after I found the right side was more consistent, I switched it up, you know? We are getting very low on pots here though. We have 1 pot left. We just try to stay near him while he's going for his like dragon claw attacks, getting the dodge off and going for those hits, because we are trying to kill the Dragon Lord as quick as possible. This fight took a while as well. I think I'll also include attempts on screen. I'm making this video like so hard for myself in editing. That's okay though. Oof. And we finish off the Dragon Lord before he goes for the final nuke, giving us the remembrance of the Dragon Lord. Alright, now it is time for the Beast Clergyman and Malekith. I pop my rune arc at the start here, and for this fight I'm using Morgoth's Curved Sword. And one thing that actually surprised me about this is you'll see when I do the repost here coming up that it actually has like a hammer animation, and it's not a sword animation, which you would expect, because you know it is a curved sword. So I would expect like the stabby thing, but it like does the hammer hit down. We get the poise break here, and now you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Like, look at that animation. It just doesn't look right to me. That's my only negative about this weapon. Besides that, this weapon is so strong. The Ash of War is really fun to use. That curved blood slice, I think you would actually combo it. I don't know. I never really used it much, because you have to like take that running animation, which leaves you vulnerable for a little bit. We get a nice bleed proc here, shifting into phase 2. Then it was time for Malekith. And Malekith, you guys taught me a little bit about like when he does his like flurry attack. Oh, we get a nice poise break right off the bat. When he does this flurry attack, you can actually just run behind him. And at first I was like, there's no way it could be that easy, but it is just that easy. So we get a nice cursed blood slice off on him. Then we get a nice dodge off. We go for the jump hit. We miss actually. He goes for a slam down. I get right behind him. I get a nice hit there. He goes for his thing. I roll behind him, and just like that, dodge the one attack that messes me up the most. He gets a nice hit off on me, and I'm trying to stay at full HP because he is deadly, and because we are naked, we take a lot of damage. We get a nice bleed proc there, killing Malekith. Oh, we got super lucky with that run. That was actually a really easy Malekith kill. Gives us another remembrance. Now, like post Malekith like normal, we go pick up the Urtru's Favorite +2. Now, I'm not going to show this, but we went and picked up a bunch of Ghost Glove Warts and the Ghost Glove Wart Bell Bearings so we can level up our Mimic tier, because we're actually going to be using the Mimic tier against Gideon. So we jump ourselves out in the white reed armor alongside the mask, because this is the proper armor set. It looks nice and drippy, and we walk into the arena, summon our Mimic tier Ash, which is now +10, and we're going to give the Mimic tier Rivers of Blood. I'm using this as a loophole because we're not using the sword. It doesn't count, but what we are going to be using to help him out, Kukri's knife here, these little daggers, because they do bleed. They're the only consumable, I believe, that does bleed damage, so we're going to be spamming him with these consumables while our Mimic tier does most of the work. Although, because I had them equipped while I summoned him, he's actually going to be throwing the knives alongside me, which isn't what I wanted. I wanted him to go in melee while I throw it at a distance, but he was also just tossing away the knives. And because he's +10, he's just so strong. He doesn't really care about Gideon's attacks, but he just does most of the work while we throw the knives at him, dealing a lot of damage. He goes for Comet there. Our Mimic tier actually cancels him. I get stuck on a post there because I'm a noob. I throw some Kukris, and the Mimic tier finishes him off, leaving Gideon killed and crossing off 2 categories. And the main reason why I did that was because you guys, most runs I do, you suggest, hey, why don't you use Mimic tier, because it'll be using whatever you're using, dealing that status damage. And I always found it as a cop-out, so I thought I'd do it this time to really show you guys it's kind of too easy, and that's why I don't often use it, and I would rather showcase the other status effects summons. But now that Gideon's dead, we move on to Godfrey. We're using the spear weapon for the Godfrey fight with the impaling thrust, and we're going to be saving Rivers of Blood for the final fight because it is just so strong. Now, for the most part here, Godfrey it's pretty samey. Nothing really changes with this fight. We just got to stay on him, be super aggressive. Whenever he does go for his 2 slashes, we try to get behind him as much as possible, and we're trying to go for bleed procs because that'll do big damage, and we try to stay on him to do those successive attacks to get those damage boosts. Now, this is probably one of the more boring weapons that we use throughout the whole playthrough. I probably should have went for another spear, but they all looked kind of like, spears just aren't fun to use. I don't know, they take quite a bit to get some hits off, and they don't feel great. We get a nice bleed proc there. He goes for the big slam down here. We get nice and close, start smacking away at him after he gets his little enraged phase there. So I try to stay behind him. We get a nice poise break. We go for the repost here, sending him into phase 2. Horalu. Oh, we actually spawned like way over there, so his grab just like doesn't do anything. And for Horalu, we're just gonna be baiting out his grab attack as per usual, because that's like one of the more punishable attacks is when he goes for the ground pound, fake out, and then when he goes for the grab. And when he does that, we just go and smack him. And for the most part, this fight does drag out because I'm just running away from him, scared, because if I get caught in his like fist combos, he'll just like kill me pretty quickly. So we just stay away from him, wait for his grab attacks, and constantly dodge them, get hits off, and back up until we find ourselves in a position where he is stuck on the ground. I can get a nice combo in and kill Horalu. And of course, after he dies is when the bleed proc goes off. And now that Horalu's dead, that's the last remembrance that we need, I believe. So now we can do +10 or +25, and it is time for the final boss. And now it is time for Radagon, and we are just going to use Corpse Piler and spam it on him. And look at that, we get into the arena and we immediately do 2,282 damage just off of one combo. That's crazy damage. Like, this thing is broken, and I think it's been nerfed a couple of times, so I could not even imagine what using it on like day 1 would have been. Like, ugh, would have been gross. But yeah, anytime he's vulnerable, either going down for a slam or recovering from any of his attacks, we just go for the full combo because it is just so strong, dealing so much damage, and it's like very low risk, high reward weapon. Just feels so good to use as well. And of course, because I think they're like the katanas have the most bleed weapons, but we had to go for the strongest one here. Like I mentioned earlier, I have never used Rivers prior to this. Yeah, this video took a while to actually finish because gathering all these and like some of these bosses got pretty difficult with the challenges I was giving myself. This is like one of the longer runs. I think this took me like near 20 hours with the remembrance rule, making it so I had to like go out of my way to fight some of the other bosses I would usually leave alone, and picking up all the different weapons. Actually got a nice poise break there. Didn't have my cerulean flasks on, so I couldn't go for more Rivers. Oh, we almost die there, but we just barely survived. Go for a jump hit, get a nice dodge in, and finish off Radagon. And now to Elden Beast time, and we use Corpse Piler again, because look at that damage, bro. 2,224 just off at the start. He uses his cookie cutter flame attack. We get behind him him, and we would do another big combo, dealing 1100 damage. And Elden Beast is big fishy man, so he likes to run away, but we're just going to stay on him constantly, trying to go for those poise breaks and big damage combos with the Corpse Piler, Ash of War. And you guys did give me a couple good ideas for this challenge, and a couple of them were a little bit late. Like someone said Reduvia only, others people said like Ash of War only, other people said region lock yourself. These are all great ideas that I did take into consideration, but I did decide to go with what I had in mind. The one suggestion I did take was the light load thing. I was like, you know what, I'll actually do that. I think that could be fun. Ash of War only I think would have been really fun too. Maybe next time I do a challenge like this, I'll do Ash of War only, just to showcase some of the Ash of Wars that I never really have used before. I think it'd be a cool challenge. You have to manage your FP, and you can't get yourself locked into these long combos every so often. He goes for his big explosion attack. We get behind him, get our heal off, and we gotta just try to stay on top of our HP, because we finished Radagon with like 8 pots left. So we try to stay on full HP as much as possible, because we don't want to get caught lacking, because Elden Beast can quickly just murk me. Like right now with these stars flying at me and him doing this attack here with the swords, like I'm just chipping away, and if any of these swords connect, I'm basically dead. I have to try to manage my FP as well, because I didn't bring a lot of FP flask into this fight. So I'm just going for regular hits right here. He swims away again. No, I think he's gonna go for circles. Yeah, he goes for circles here. I turn around and start running away. I've learned so much more about like these fights and how to handle these situations because you guys, I'd like to thank you for that, because like I mentioned previously, a commenter actually showed me how to do the rings properly. You guys taught me about the Malekith trick. You guys taught me about the iframes with the horse. A lot of stuff I am learning, and I'm very thankful for that, to have you guys to help me out with all of that, because I would have just kept playing none the wiser. Elden Beast is close to dead here. We're out of FP. We go for a jump hit and finish off the Elden Beast, making us the Lord of Blood. Thank you guys for watching. That'll be the end of this video. I appreciate everything, and if you liked, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate it because it pushes the video to more people, and I'll see you in the next video. Later.